Are you planning to soundproof a drywall? Well, I interviewed Lisa Schott, who's been working with soundproofing for many, many years, and she has encountered countless of drywalls. She's going to share the most common tips that are really valuable to know, and also the most common mistakes people do when they are trying to soundproof a drywall. And make sure that you're sticking around till the end, because she's going to tell us what some very costly mistakes people do that people might not think about when they're starting out. Didn't even know much about drywall before I started out with this. I wanted so I wanted to ask you regarding drywalls, what do people need to think about when they are installing drywall specifically for soundproofing?
Okay. I mean, more typically it would be a contractor installing that, right?
Well, yeah, but the blog I'm writing, where I'm going to put on this video, it's going to be for people who want to build things at home for on themselves. And
Hmm.
I actually grew up with my dad, who he actually built our home, and he did everything. And it's also for people who want to do things by themselves.
Hmm.
So,
Okay.
and it's actually a very common question, believe it or not, on the internet. How can you soundproof a drywall? So I figured who else to get, who better to go to and ask who, like how to soundproof a drywall. So if,
Okay.
so if
Sure.
it's from the basics, what do you need to think about when you are installing a drywall?
So for drywall walls, there's a number of important considerations. First, the type of drywall. Everyone might think that, well, drywall is drywall, right? There are different types. Um, some of the products that have been being made in order to get the cost down, they're making them lighter weight, making them less dense. And so we actually in the acoustics industry we found several years ago that gosh, it was a little bit puzzling because some walls that we were testing were not meeting our expectations.
Mm.
And investigations showed that there were some that drywall, another name for drywall is gypsum board, and there were some factories that were making them a lot less dense, which made them cheaper because it requires less material to be
Yeah.
compressed into that board, but it did have a measurable effect on the sound. So you need to look at the type of drywall. So the higher the density, the better. There are some engineered drywalls out there. There are another number of companies that are making special, you could call it acoustical gypsum board, if you will, and they're typically laminated designs. They might have two thinner pieces of drywall with a piece of material in them that is a flexible, almost, you could think of it like a fabric type material that
Uh-huh.
allows the wall to have better acoustic properties because it doesn't transmit the noise as easily. And then a couple other important considerations are I mentioned insulation several times, and it's not always the answer to noise control, but putting insulation inside a wall that's built with either wood studs or steel studs is a very good idea. That increases what we call the STC rating, which is a measure of the noise reduction of the wall, significantly. To have the stud cavities inside the wall, if they're filled with insulation, that's a major improvement in the noise reduction. And then probably the third consideration is we've talked about this a few times, making sure there are no leaks in your wall. If
Yes.
you have any electrical outlet boxes, you should make sure to stuff insulation around the back of those. Or there's a product called putty pads, and it literally looks like putty, like Play-Doh. And you
Uh,
can put that around the back of the box, and it's electrically safe, but it seals up all the holes because you have to have holes in the boxes to get the wires in. So
mhm.
that any holes are an acoustical leak point, and you can caulk around the edges of where that box comes into the wall. So, I think just like in summary, gypsum board density, insulation in the wall, and preventing any leaks are three big tips.
I see. But when I start reading about drywalls and walls in general regarding soundproofing, the subject of green glue comes up a lot. And I was wondering how much truth is it to it? Should you just cover your whole wall with green glue? Is it effective, or what's your opinion about it?
Um, it has some effectiveness. I don't remember what the claims are as far as how much effectiveness, but if you're putting two layers of drywall together, there are a number of ways to adhere those layers together. Green glue is one, and other brands like that. Drywall screws, and well, those are probably the top two
Mhm.
methods. The green glue, the benefit of that, as I see it, is it provides you, if it's applied right, a continuous adherence, a continuous surface to adhere those two pieces of drywall together. Whereas, individual drywall screws, that's discrete connection points. You could end up with some movement or, some vibration or even just that resonance condition that I mentioned before, that's a potential risk whenever you have a couple of materials separated by a space. So, it's a benefit. I can't speak to how much it will increase.
Yeah, it also depends on what specific wall and also in what circumstances you're using it, I guess.
Yes, and actually, I'm glad you brought that up. A lot of people who start studying walls and trying to figure out how to build the best wall, they become familiar with the term STC rating, and I said that before.
Yeah.
That stands for sound transmission class, and it's a single number measure of how well the wall reduces noise. So the
Mhm.
higher the STC rating, the better. And so then a lot of people start to ask at that point, well, if I add another layer of gypsum board, how much does my STC increase? Well, there's not one answer to that because it depends on the overall construction of the wall. You can imagine, just to take it to an extreme, let's say you have an 8-inch thick concrete wall that was poured concrete.
Yeah.
That's a great noise reduction. If you add one layer of drywall to that, how much would you increase the STC rating? Not very much. Okay, whereas if the wall behind you probably has a stud, either wood or metal studs, and
Mhm.
probably has one layer of drywall on each side. If you
Mhm.
add a second to layer of drywall to that, the increase will be much more than it is to that 8-inch concrete wall.
I get you. Well, how about this? If I give this wall as an example, this is between my wall over here is just a wall between two of my own rooms, right? So it doesn't matter that it's not very
Right.
soundproof. But let's say I'm annoyed by this for some reason, and it's already there, and don't want to tear down the whole wall to build from scratch. And assuming that there is no leakage, I mean, there's an open door over there, but let's ignore it. There's just this wall. What can I do about it?
Well, I mentioned before, adding insulation to a wall that's built like that is quite a valuable thing to do.
Mhm.
And there are a couple of ways to do that. If you can get the access to the top of it up in your attic, you may be able to blow in insulation from the top. Now, there might be, if you're in a multifamily building, you might not be able to do that. You
Yeah,
can
no.
also, yeah, you can drill holes near the top of the wall and
Uh-huh.
blow that insulation and then patch the holes. So that's one way. But if you don't want to do any of that, nothing destructive, you can also add, we talked about adding drywall layers before.
Mhm.
There are ways to do that without introducing a resonance. So you could add additional layers to that wall to increase the sound reduction. And some people might want to do that if that wall was separating a bathroom from a living space or a bedroom from a living space. That might be a reason you'd want to make that a little bit better, even inside your own residence.
I see. So what last question regarding soundproofing a drywall? What is the biggest mistake people do, and what do you think people need to know when they're planning to soundproof that wall?
I would say that simply slapping up another piece of drywall isn't necessarily the answer. It has to be done right. It has to be attached properly. You have to make sure you eliminate the leak points. And as importantly, is that really the path that the noise is traveling? You've got an open door next to you there, which is
Uh,
obviously a big leak point. If you've got electrical outlets that are a big leak point, maybe adding another layer of drywall isn't the right answer.
hmm. Yeah, we actually talked about this in another video that it's also you have to first of all find out what the source of the noise is. If it's in another room and it's like a machine or something, then maybe you shouldn't, soundproof the whole wall. Maybe you should just fix the machine, which is something that you've said yourself. That's something that people a lot of the time they do. They overspend when they should think strategically and not just soundproof everything.
Yes, and your example of a machine is a very good example. If a air conditioner or a pump is vibrating the
Yeah.
wall and you add another layer of drywall to it, the vibration will still be there and the vibration will still transmit the noise even if you add another layer of drywall. You really need to get to the vibration source and isolate that to keep that wall from shaking.
Cool. I think that covers everything for drywalls, right?
I think so.
And that's it. Thank you for watching. If you want me to interview a soundproofing expert about a particular subject, then please let me know in the comments section below. And also, if you have a soundproofing question in mind, then let me know as well, and I'll get right back to you, hopefully with a new video as well. Also, like and comment and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And until next time, take care.